So this is the HTC One, the best smartphone in the world right now. But its size means it's not going to be for everybody. But what if you want everything the One has to offer, but in a smaller package? That's where the One Mini comes in. It's not quite as mini as its name suggests, but it's far more compact than its big bro and still rocks impressive specs. From its 341 ppi screen to the same camera sensor found in the original One and the brilliant Sense UI. It helps that it looks good too. Very rarely are sub-flagship phones designed with the same level of attention to detail and finish as the One Mini. It's lighter and skinnier, making it much better for one-handed use. It's also easier to reach the back and home buttons. But at a quick glance, it doesn't quite have the same wow factor as the One, which is mainly attributed to the gloss plastic adorning the sides. But at least the edges will stand up better to bumps and scrapes. Other than that, it's essentially the same smart aluminium build, complete with smaller symmetrical boom sound speakers. The secret infrared blaster may have gone, and in place of a volume rocker are two plastic buttons. But the most important thing to take from this is that the One's gorgeous premium design has been trickled down into a much more affordable handset. This also means there's no removable back cover for micro SD slots or swappable batteries. But the payoff is a brilliantly crafted phone for less money than you'd expect. Now, for a mid-range smartphone, the One impresses with its superb 4.3-inch 720p Super LCD display, and resolution aside, this is every bit as good as the One's screen in terms of colours, brightness and clarity. Text, high-res images and Full HD movies look sharper on the One's 1080p screen, but if you want a smaller screen on Android, the One Mini is one of the best. HD videos have great contrast and wide viewing angles, and while colours often step into oversaturated territory, the overall presentation is very natural. It's not all joy though, sacrifices elsewhere have had to be made. So it's running on a 1.4 GHz dual-core Snapdragon 400 processor and 1 GB of RAM. And while it may be a step slower than the best, performance is actually very reliable and is more than adequate for all but the most demanding of users. It handles multitasking, movie downloads and killer games with minimal stutter. But there's only 16 GB of storage, which is a real shame, especially given that 5 GB of storage is already accounted for before you've even taken it out of the box. We're less bothered about the lack of NFC though, because 4G and aptX Bluetooth have both made the cut. And as with the One, Sense 5 sits on top of Android Jelly Bean, bringing with it everything we loved. So Blink Feed for news and social updates, Zoe for video and photo highlights in your gallery, and HTC Sync for easy content transfers. You're also treated to the One's 4-megapixel ultra-pixel sensor. The camera, which uses fewer but larger pixels, isn't the very best of the current crop of flagships, but for a mid-ranger, it's a real treat. With the same modes and settings, macro and portrait shots look bright and sharp, with accurate and neutral colours. Zoomed shots and crops highlight detail limitations though, and make it apparent that the One Mini is missing image stabilisation. But the Mini's biggest flaw has got to be its battery life. Oh, how wrong we were to assume that a smaller, lower-res screen and less horsepower would mean the One Mini would outlast the One when it came to battery. In fact, heavy use saw it run down in just over 6 hours, so it's worth noting that long days and constant use without charging could prove problematic. Now, HTC were always going to trim the specs a bit, and overall we think they've got the balance just about right for the price, as long as you don't mind less storage and a weaker battery life. But it's great for a mid-range smartphone, especially if you want the HTC One, but you can't quite stretch your hands over its size or your wallet over that price tag.